There are days when our souls feel tired, when life's battles leave us without the strength to continue. Who has never felt this way? Fear, uncertainty, and difficulties come as hardships, trying to drown us in worries. But what if I told you that there is a safe haven, a place where you can find peace, strength, and renewal, regardless of the situation? Psalm 46 is an invitation to trust in God and rest in the certainty that He is present in every moment, ready to help us. Many people live restless, trying to solve everything with their own strength, but they forget that God is the true strength. He is not just a distant observer. He is by our side, sustaining us in the most difficult moments. Have you ever experienced this security? Have you ever felt the power of prayer, bringing peace to your heart? This message is for you who need renewal, for you who seek an answer from God. Through this psalm, you will discover that even when everything around us seems to be falling apart, faith in the Lord keeps us standing. Today, we will delve into this powerful reflection and understand how trusting in God can transform the way we face challenges. You will learn to rest in Him, to find strength in prayer, and to live with the certainty that the Heavenly Father takes care of every detail of your life. If you need spiritual renewal, this is the right time to open your heart and allow God to speak to you. There are times in life when everything seems to be falling apart around us. Trials arrive like raging waves, and our hearts are filled with fear. But it is in this scenario of uncertainty that Psalm 46 resonates like an anchor for the soul. It reminds us that even if the mountains shake and the seas rage, God remains unshakable. His presence brings security when everything else seems frightening. Here, there is no room for despair, because the Lord is the firm foundation for those who trust in Him. Who has never intervened on difficult days, when anguish tightens the chest and answers seem distant? In these times, prayer becomes the bridge that connects us to the divine presence. Psalm 46 invites us to rest in the certainty that God not only hears us, but acts. He is not a distant help, but a very present refuge. Just as Jesus calmed the storm on the Sea of Galilee, He also calms the storms within us. All we need to do is trust and seek His presence with faith. And when everything seems impossible, remember that strength does not come from situations, but from our connection with God. Those who surrender to the Lord discover that He strengthens, renews, and empowers us. It was this way with David when he faced giants, with Paul when he endured prison, and it can be this way with each one of us. True spirituality teaches us not to fear, but to rest in the purpose of life that God has for us. And if He is for us, who can be against us? In days of tribulation, when everything seems right, there is one truth that never changes. God is our refuge and strength. The world may offer temporary answers, but only the Lord is a safe haven amid life's storms. In Psalm 46, we see an invitation to trust Him without reservation, for His presence is constant, His help is immediate, and His love is unwavering. Those who take refuge in God find rest for their souls, even when contrary winds insist on blowing. But how can we experience this security? Through faith, prayer, and total surrender. Just as a child runs to his father's arms in moments of fear, we are called to run to God, certain that He welcomes us. Job's life teaches us this. Even in the midst of loss and pain, he stood firm, knowing that the Lord was his true support. And this promise remains alive today. God does not abandon His own, but but strengthens them in the midst of battle. When we feel weak, we must remember that it is in weakness that God's power is perfected. He not only delivers us from challenges, but gives us the strength to overcome them. Paul understood this truth when he said, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." Philippians 4 verse 13. So, no matter how big the problem is, what matters is the size of our God. He sustains, guides, and renews us because His love is eternal and His faithfulness never fails. Trusting in God does not depend on statistics, but on the certainty of who He is. Psalm 46 teaches us that even when everything falls apart, the Lord remains the same, faithful, present, and powerful. Noah needed this trust when God called him to build the ark in a time of unbelief. Abraham declared this faith when he set out without knowing where he was going. And today, this same trust sustains us because God never fails those who wait on Him. The challenge is to learn to rest, even when we do not see the solution. Many times, we want immediate answers, but the Lord works in His time. Mary and Martha felt this when Lazarus died. It seemed like the end, but Jesus arrived at the right time to reveal His glory. The same thing happens in our lives. God does not ignore our struggles. He does not have an exact time, strengthening our faith and molding us for something greater. Waiting, in fact, is part of spiritual growth. And how can we develop this unshakable trust? By constantly seeking God. Prayer keeps us connected to Him. Reading the Word renews our hope, and praise strengthens our hearts. Psalms such as 91, 23, and 46 are living reminders that we are never alone. Those who draw close to the Lord discover that His peace is real, that His presence is transformative, and that even in the face of chaos, we can be certain that He is in control of all things. This verse carries a powerful truth. God is not just a distant refuge, but a present help. When fear tries to take over, when uncertainty screams, He is there, ready to strengthen us. Think of Daniel, thrown into the lion's den. Humanly, there was no way out. But God was with him, shutting the lion's mouths and showing that, for those who press forward, no adversity is greater than His power. The same is true for us. The Lord's help is real and arrives exactly when we need it most. Many times we seek refuge in fleeting things, in people, in situations, in human solutions. But there is only one truly safe place, the presence of God. In Psalm 91, we see that those who dwell in the shelter of the Most High rest in the shadow of the Almighty. This means living a life of communion, trusting fully in the Lord. Those who make prayer and faith a lifestyle experience this security that does not depend on what happens around them, but on the certainty that God never abandons us. And how can we apply this promise in our daily lives? Start by giving your worries to the Lord. Instead of carrying burdens alone, talk to God. Read the Word and keep verses in your heart, such as Psalm 46 verse 1. In times of anguish, declare this truth with faith. Just as Peter walked on water when he kept his eyes on Jesus, we can also weather any storm when we trust that He is our refuge and strength. And in this safe place, we find peace, strength, and direction to move forward. Life is marked by challenges, and we often find ourselves surrounded by fear and uncertainty. But Psalm 46 invites us to take a different path. Trust in God, even when everything seems hopeless. Remember the storm the disciples were in on the boat? Fear paralyzed them, but Jesus was there, ready to laugh at the waters. The same is true on our journey. Faith teaches us that no matter how strong a storm is, the God who is with us is even stronger. But faith is not just believing that God exists. It is trusting Him fully in every situation. Peter only sank when he took his eyes off Jesus and focused on the strength of the wind. When we look at our problems, we feel weak, but when we look to God, we find the strength to carry on. Prayer keeps us connected, and the Word strengthens our faith. Just as a soldier equips himself before battle, we too need to strengthen ourselves spiritually to face life's challenges. And this trust is developed in our daily lives. Read the scriptures, meditate on promises like Isaiah 41 verse 10. Fear not, for I am with you, and put your faith into practice. In difficult times, instead of complaining, pray. Instead of doubting, declare God's faithfulness. When we give our worries to the Lord, He sustains us. And so, even in the midst of uncertainty, we can walk with peace in our hearts, certain that God cares for us. There is no safe path without God's presence. At every step of the journey, He is by our side, sustaining us with His grace. Moses experienced this in the desert. When facing the sea, it seemed there was no way out. But God opened a way where there was none. The same thing happens in our lives. The Lord protects us, guides us, and strengthens us, even when everything seems difficult. Faith teaches us to trust, not in what we see, but in the certainty that God is in control of all things. Many times, we feel tired without the strength to continue. But it is precisely in these moments that divine strength manifests itself. The prophet Isaiah declared, "Those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength." Isaiah 40 verse 31. When we seek God in prayer and meditate on His word, we function in renewal. His presence not only strengthens us, but gives us direction. Just as a lamp lights the way in the darkness, God guides us and frees us from danger. And this strength is not only for difficult days, it is always available. When we face uncertainty, we must remember that Jesus Himself promised, "I am with you always." Matthew 28 verse 20. He protects us in battles, guides us when we don't know what to do, and strengthens us when we feel weak. True peace comes from this connection with God. Those who walk with Him do not fear the future, because they know that the Heavenly Father takes care of every detail of their lives. And now I ask you, in whom have you placed your trust? When difficulties come, does your heart despair or rest in the certainty that God is in control? Psalm 46 teaches us that, regardless of the circumstances, the Lord is our refuge, our strength, and our present help. But this truth only becomes real when we choose to live by faith, seeking God in prayer, and strengthening our spirituality daily. Maybe today you are facing a difficult time, feeling anxious, weak, and without direction. But remember, God is with you. He never abandons you. What can you do now to strengthen this connection with the Lord? How about setting aside some time for prayer? Meditating on passages like Psalm 91 and Philippians 4 verse 6? Faith grows when we draw closer to God, and He wants to guide every step of your way. If this message spoke to your heart, share it with someone who also needs to hear this word. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and continue following teachings that will strengthen your faith. God has great plans for your life. Just trust and walk with Him. And remember, even if everything seems uncertain, the Lord is and always will be your refuge and strength.